Again, thank you to our panelists for taking time out of their busy day to also comment on the new trip report. And my name is Rocky Moretti. Moretti is spelled Moretti, and I'm the Director of Policy and Research with TRIP. TRIP is a nonprofit organization based in Washington, D.C. that for 50 years now have been putting out reports at the state, national, and also local level looking at the condition of our transportation system, including road and bridge conditions, traffic congestion, and traffic safety, and also the impact of our transportation system on our economies. The new report today, New Mexico Transportation by the Numbers, is based on our analysis of the latest data from the New Mexico Department of Transportation, but also federal sources, including the Federal Highway Administration and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The TRIP report finds that New Mexico, up until the pandemic, had some of the fastest growing travel in the country, with an increase of 22% in travel on the state's roads and highways. As we all know, the pandemic hit last March or late in the winter, and by April of last year in New Mexico, travel had decreased by 41% across the state. Now, as November, the latest month that we have the data, we see that travel in New Mexico was 10% below the previous November. So you started to see travel beginning to recover, and obviously moving ahead. I think we all look forward to slowly working our ways out of the pandemic. And it's likely, while there may be some shifts in work patterns and residential patterns, but ultimately we'll see vehicle travel returning to previous levels. The TRIP report also points out that with this tremendous growth that continues to occur in New Mexico, that the State Department of Transportation reports that they have a $2.8 billion in critically needed transportation projects. These are projects to improve safety on the state's transportation system, to relieve traffic congestion or expand mobility to help support economic development opportunities, or to improve road and bridge conditions across the state. But currently they don't have adequate funding for these needed projects to move forward. TRIP also took a look at what is the impact. Obviously, investing more in the transportation system is going to require more funds that ultimately derive from the public. But as we point out in the report, that motorists in the state annually are paying $2.7 billion in the cost of driving on roads that are deteriorated, that are beating up their vehicles due to traffic congestion, which costs more time and wasted fuel, and then the economic cost of traffic crashes where the lack of adequate roadway safety features, while not the primary cause, were a contributing factor. TRIP estimates that the average motorist in the Albuquerque area is spending an additional $2,447 annually in additional vehicle operating costs due to driving on rough roads, lost time and wasted fuel due to traffic congestion, and economic costs associated with traffic crashes. The TRIP report also finds that the average motorist in the Santa Fe area is spending an additional $1,912 annually in the cost of driving on rough roads, which cause additional vehicle operating costs, cost of traffic congestion, which causes delays and wasted time, and also the economic cost of serious and fatal traffic crashes. We also took a look at the condition of New Mexico's transportation system, and the TRIP report finds that statewide, in New Mexico, 32% of major roads have pavements in poor condition, and another 24% are rated in mediocre condition. In Albuquerque, the TRIP report finds that 40% of major roads in the region are in poor condition, and another 20% are rated in mediocre condition. In Santa Fe, the TRIP report finds that 34% of major roads are rated in poor condition, and another 18% are rated in mediocre condition. We also took a look at bridges in the state and note that in New Mexico, 5% of the state's bridges are in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, and another 57% are rated in fair condition, and those are bridges that are going to need ongoing maintenance and preservation work to extend the life of those bridges and preclude them from falling into poor condition. In New Mexico, 2% of the region's bridges are rated in poor condition, and 68% are rated in fair condition. and they need ongoing preservation and maintenance work to keep them from falling into poor condition. In the Santa Fe area, 3% of the bridges are rated in poor condition and in need of immediate repair, and 50% are rated in fair condition and need ongoing work to keep them from falling into poor condition. We also took a look at, with travel beginning to come back to pre-pandemic levels, the impact of traffic congestion. The report finds that the average driver in Albuquerque is spending an additional 44 hours annually stuck in traffic due to traffic congestion, time that they could be using to get at home or doing a variety of activities that I'm sure they would happily be doing rather than being stuck in traffic. In the Santa Fe area, the trip report estimates that the average motorist is spending an additional 28 hours annually stuck in traffic, again, time that they would not be losing if the transportation system in the region was more reliable. The trip report notes that over the last 5 years, that there has been approximately 1,900 traffic fatalities in New Mexico, and the rate of traffic fatalities compared against the amount of travel in New Mexico is the third highest rate in the country. So clearly a significant challenge in improving traffic safety. We know that when you make roadway safety improvements, they can result in significant improvements in safety. This is everything from adding rumble strips to adding paved shoulders to adding turn lanes to improving lane markings and lighting. All of these have significant impacts. As the report points out, on average, 150 people are being killed annually in the Albuquerque area in traffic crashes, and 29 people are being killed annually in the Santa Fe area in traffic crashes. So we could have a significant positive impact on safety with the resources in place to make those improvements. The report also points out that the state's economy literally is riding on its transportation system, particularly its highways, with $123 billion worth of goods being moved on the state's transportation system, and the value of that is going to more than double when adjusted for inflation over the next 25 years. And we've seen that through the pandemic, that our reliance on our freight system has only increased. In fact, truck travel across the country is actually higher now than it was before the pandemic. Finally, the report itself includes a list developed by the New Mexico Department of Transportation, including major projects on the state's major interstates, including interstates 10, 25, and 40, that the state would like to move forward with, but currently don't have the resources to do that. And we know that these investments are critical to the state's economy. 26,000 jobs in New Mexico are tied directly to the improvements that are made on an annual basis to its roads, bridges, and highways. And approximately 350,000 jobs in the state are in sectors of the economy that are highly reliant on the state's transportation system. In conclusion, New Mexico's transportation system clearly needs a boost in funding. That can be achieved at the state and local level, but the federal program, which brings in nearly $400 million a year for highways and transit, is also a critical source of funding. That program expires in September. Certainly the Biden administration and the new Congress have indicated significant support for increasing investment in the transportation system, and it will be vital that we see a long-term, adequately and reliably funded federal surface transportation program in place by September. But certainly the federal government has a role to play, but we also need strong support for the transportation system by the state legislature. With that in mind, we're very pleased to have State Senator Michael Padilla, who's going to speak next. And then we'll be hearing from two representatives, Rebecca Dow and Willie Madrid, to address these issues. Senator?
Thank you very much, Rocky. Thank you so much for pulling us together this way. And as you can see, this is truly a bipartisan, effort to roll this trip report out. I have great respect for Representative Dow and Representative Madrid. We work very well together in the legislature on a number of topics. And so thank you for pulling us together this way. There's no secret. You don't really even need, Rocky, a report. You don't need a report to see how and the condition that our roads are in right now. All you have to do is hop in your vehicle and drive a couple of miles. Our roads at the moment are a complete disaster. And we do need to take it seriously, not only from a safety standpoint, and you rolled out those numbers, they're pretty devastating when you think about it. 150 in the Albuquerque area, 29 in Santa Fe, and I'm guessing that in southern New Mexico, it's rather high. Eastern New Mexico, where we have most of our, a lot of our economy that takes place in the oil and gas region, which, is a very important sector here in New Mexico. The safety of those drivers and the residents that live in that area and the workers that work in those businesses are incredibly important. I'm sure the numbers are pretty devastating there as well. So, setting the stage that way, I think it's super important that we understand that the state has a lot of needs. And we are truly fooling ourselves if we don't think that economic development, opportunities for New Mexico look directly at our transportation systems. If you're not able to get your goods and services and your goods out of the state of New Mexico or into the state of New Mexico, we are seriously handicapping ourselves that way. And so, I appreciate the time and your ability to take a look at this in such a deep dive. But I'll just point out one specific project that I think is really important for people to know about. Right at the northern tip of my district, we were able to bring Amazon to New Mexico. That project was very strategic in terms of how they get in and out of that facility. And the work that we've done in that area helped us to land that project. Those are not just going to be, warehouse jobs, which are incredibly important, but all of the other infrastructure jobs as well to make that company hum and make that company work. And had we not made those investments in that area, we may not have gotten that project. And that's going to truly help us diversify our economy, not be so heavily dependent on government jobs or on oil or on just a couple of sectors. That truly puts us into the here and now. And so we need to take our transportation issues very seriously, because right now our roads are a disaster. If you take a look at the report that you rolled out, Rocky, 4 to 5 times whenever we defer maintenance. So that means that $2.8 billion, which would just to kind of, by comparison, our entire state budget is $7.2 billion. So $2.8 billion to get this done. There are a number of sources that we can bring together to get this done. But if we don't do it, we're looking at over $10 billion. $10 billion to bring our roads up to standard. And from a safety standpoint, economic development standpoint, and things of that nature. So I'm 100% with you on helping to get this done, to help to get it funded. And I know the representatives have a couple of things to say too. We're politicians, and if you don't rein us in, we'll talk for hours. So thank you, Rocky, for letting me cover those very important points. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And now we'll hear from Representative Rebecca Dow.
Thank you, Rocky, for the opportunity to be here today. And thank you, Senator Padilla, for the kind words. And this is truly a bipartisan effort. Everyone understands, all of our lawmakers understand how critically it is important for us to invest in highway and rural road infrastructure. It is not only, interstate commerce is not only the key to survival in our day-to-day lives, but it's the investment in these roads and these highways that will drive economic development. I think that Senator Padilla used a really good example in regards to Amazon, and a similar project, developing a rural road to Spaceport America, has already resulted in millions of dollars and hundreds of jobs in the middle of nowhere. And it took an investment in a rural road development to allow these high-tech, high-paying jobs to come to New Mexico. Just one lease at the spaceport, one vendor at the spaceport has over 180 jobs that have a beginning wage at $65,000 plus benefits. Very, very generous packages. They're high paying jobs in technical fields. Not only will the work that's happening at spaceport improve economy in New Mexico, but the day-to-day lives of New Mexicans from the work that is being done there, from space investment, launching 5G to rural areas, getting high-speed internet where it cannot be done without satellite, without major costs and investment. So to see those types of jobs happening and the different types of investment that are happening is possible because of the rural road development the investment that was made. So it's one example of literally building roads and creating new economy.
Thank you, Representative Dow. We're all now going to hear from Representative Willie Madrid. And you'll need to unmute your microphone.
That's going to be the quote of the year. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Rocky and Carolyn Kelly. I've been a part of House Transportation and Public Works now is what we're called. And that being said, I have a close connection with New Mexico DOT, and that's where we're coming to. I've been a part of a committee for 3 years, and I've come to develop a real key sense of our state's issues in the way of our New Mexico Department of Transportation. That being said, I want to say retrospectively that these are numbers that are still very unsettling to us all. And it's absolutely true, as Senator Padilla and others have said, we need to make a continued investment. So I would implore our governor right now, and I think the aspect of our new future is coming through this new public works responsibility that we're incumbing, and the importance of putting broadband in along the way. That's a very important, essential need of our whole state. So in truth, the bipartisan is the essential ingredient to this success of our state. We are elected officials for districts of people that ride on these roads, and we are the public officials that are elected to make legislation to assist in better corridors of improving our economy. There's no doubt that when I see these numbers, in one aspect, I'd say our roads are being used for a reason. That means we have prosperity, we have future, we have essential people coming in and see that there is viability here. We do lack and we do need more. And I think it's going to be in the coming years now with some federal assistance that will help us assist on this. That being said, I come from the far south, right up against Texas, and right in the middle. And I have a corridor. We're looking for more corridors to increase the business of our state, to improve our opportunities of employment and economy. And most of all, if it weren't for Associated Contractors of New Mexico, who I got to put a shout out for putting this on, they make the effort to get us this knowledge of the trip report every year, and it's a cold, sobering effect of understanding our responsibilities. And I don't think in any way New Mexico DOT is incapable of this. I just think we as a state and as a body of the House and the body of the Senate have to be more collaborative about this effort. And I think I will put it out there. I implore our governor to step up and add a lot more funds to this, because I've been in it for 3 years and we're still lacking about $1 billion of unfunded projects that if we could get that extra billion, it wouldn't be the answer. Senator Padilla is right, 10 billion. But that first extra billion would be a good start that would enhance the beginnings of improvements of what has a lot of planning already. So I thank Rocky, I thank Carol Kelly again, and I put an exceptional support to the fact that New Mexico DOT is only capable of doing what we can give them as much to do. So we need to continue enforcing those responsibilities of getting more capital to them. That's the only way I see this as being a solution. We have so much viability in our state, and it's at a turning point, if you will, of our state, and I think we'll make the turn. And I want to just say thank you to everybody for having us here, and we appreciate when we get pulled together like this, both sides, because it is a sense of one that we want to come out of this. So thank you, and I appreciate you all coming down and giving us the trip report again.
Yeah, by all means. Thank you, Representative Madrid. I didn't mention this earlier. I'll turn it over to Carolyn, but if there are questions now, we'd like to go ahead and take those. Carolyn, perhaps you could sort of explain how we're going to set that up.
Sure, thanks, Rocky. We'll be able to take any questions from the media who are on the line today. If you do have a question that you'd like to ask of the panelists or of Rocky, if you'll use either the raise hand function down below, or you can submit the question to the chat. And once you do that, I'll be able to elevate you to being a panelist, and you can ask your question live of anyone on our panelists. So we'll give that a moment for anybody to enter any questions or to use the raise hand feature to indicate that they wanted to ask a question. I also wanted to note that the recording of this news conference will be available on the TRIP website within about half an hour or 45 minutes. We've also got the full report there, as well as news releases for each of the areas that are covered in the report. And there are also some short video clips that Rocky's provided with a breakdown of the data for each of the urban areas that are included in the report. So I do see one question that's come in from Algernon. So you're live now. If you go ahead and unmute your line, you'll be able to ask your question of the panelists.
Well, yes, thank you. Just a question to the lawmakers that are on this call. In light of the comments that you've made, would you like to sort of give an update in your respective chambers about what infrastructure bills addressing the deficits in the report have made their way, what progress has been made, and perhaps what deficits you see that remain that will have to be addressed? Thanks.
Well, I'm happy to address that, Algernon. If it's all right with the representatives, I'll just talk about the Senate for a few moments. Excellent question. It's a point that we have debated ad nauseum in the state Senate for several years now. We have some of the lowest gas taxes in the region, and they've been that way since the 1980s. And so as a result, we're taking a serious look at what we do with gas tax, because that is where this large chunk of money can come from. We discussed about a 15-cent per gallon actual tax, and 7 of that to go into a transportation infrastructure permanent fund, and the other half to go into next year's, well, the next 12 months worth of projects and what have you. So that's one project, one effort. You know, there's also a number of other things related to the advent of electric vehicles and how are we going to tax, you know, that scenario, because as we move to renewable and electric vehicles, and we'll have less and less dependence on oil and gas, which is a whole other component of our economy and funding for state government. We have to make that move here pretty soon. So you have 2 different measures in the Senate, at least, on that very topic as well.
And thank you for the question. And I think that the area that we can agree on is folks are willing to pay a higher tax on their gas if we're assured that those dollars go directly to improving and repairing roads. So assuring that that's where those dollars go will be key in passing a gas tax, if that is what happens. I also think that we have lots of opportunity to leverage more of our federal dollars if we can make the state match. And I hope that, you know, we're hearing that there's this COVID relief and economic recovery dollars that are coming to the state in the tune of close to $1 billion. Jobs are created when we repair roads and through the construction process and through the commerce that's allowed to occur. So if we can dedicate some of those dollars and we can leverage those with private partnerships, we don't have to pass all the burden off to the taxpayers and the folks who call New Mexico home. But all the above, private-public partnerships, leveraging our federal dollars with state match, and assuring that tax increases on the pump go directly to roads and road repairs.
And I'll just add one more thing before Representative on public-private partnerships. Sorry to jump in, Representative Madrid. So I had a bill on this with Representative Lundstrom, the chair of House Appropriations and Finance, last year. Actually, we tried it 2 years in a row. We're retooling and we'll more than likely bring that bill back next year. Thank you.
I think in both ends is essential in the responses of Senator Padilla and Representative Rebecca Dow. I'm going to say that it's essential right now that in the Committee of Transportation, House Transportation and Public Works, I think there's a big movement in the way of public works that's got to be interwoven with this new aspect of implementation. And I'm a little bit concerned that we don't understand that we need a great deal of oil to be able to put these roads together. And so I think we can't give up on that end of responsibility of knowing that we need that oil, and that oil is essential to putting down on the ground, along with the fact of the matter that when we do this, it's going to have a tremendous increase of employment if economy boosts just to get these roads to the levels they need to be, which to me I think is essential in increasing our viability is by through employment and increasing the economy. The outset of all of this is that it's in its play, where it's coming very critical. I don't know in the 3 years that I've been here that I've seen it as critical as it is now, because we essentially see the deprivation of our roads, and it's into our households, to our families, and outside of the families. So there's a great essential need for our roads to be serving of all of our people in the state. And I think it's going to flourish. I think we're a dedicated body, is what I can say, in a bipartisan way that I've not seen in 3 years until this year. And it's because we understand that the people are depending on this, and they're depending on our abilities to find a meeting of minds that gives the resolution to a prosperity of a future. So I'm proud to say that I'm a New Mexican, and we will fight to gain ourselves back to the levels we were. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other questions. If there are any questions, feel free to, as I said, either put those in the chat. Actually, I see a question from Lola Chavez. Actually, Lola, I will go ahead and make you a panelist, and you'll be allowed to ask your question live of the panel.
Yeah, I'm sure this isn't the full online report, but what are some of the major roads that are in the biggest need of a repair at this time?
Well, I can tell you, I'll speak just about the area that I represent. I have I-25 and I-40 that slice right through my district. And the west end of I-40 on the west side of Albuquerque was repaired when we redid the intersection at I-40 in Coors. But if you just drive west of there, the roads are literally cracking. We had the entire section right around that intersection. We had to go to, I think we had to go to court at one point to get the contractor to come in and rebuild that road because it was done so poorly. Our next step is to get that other section rebuilt. I would say that the stretch of I-25 going through Albuquerque is probably in pretty good shape. The section around near downtown Albuquerque, I-25, say between Lead and Coal all the way up to probably Central and MLK is really in dire need of being straightened and rebuilt. That project alone could easily run $1 billion because of all the different things that are going to have happen with the property owners and things of that nature. And I don't know if the representatives want to talk about other areas, but I know that we have other significant issues on the east side of the state where the oil and gas industry is plentiful. And if we don't repair those roads, we wind up with very serious issues there as well.
Yeah, I think in District 1, which is my area down in the southwest corner of the state, the most critical road project right now is on I-10 from Deming all the way to the Arizona border. That is a major interstate commerce, highway used for interstate commerce, but also for people's daily transportation. It needs repair, and it's pretty urgent. There's multiple bridges in District 1 that do need some investment. And this is why it's so critical that we do get the federal infrastructure bill passed, and that we are able to leverage federal dollars to get this work done.
And I'm from down right on the border there where we have the port of entry, and we built another one. And we're now I want to say, in the top 3 in the nation for the most productivity dealing with border trade. And while we still have that corridor, we're looking for other corridors, one particularly on the other side of my county, Highway 54, which is 15 minutes from the border, supports the east side of Texas and the infrastructure, manufacturing, and port business that's out that way. So it goes without saying, in the south, I would tell you, we need to get to the roads out I-10 going out towards Deming. That's another area of the west that has greatly been underserviced and needs great improvement because it's a major corridor going east and west. That being said, when we talk about the millions of dollars, we have trillions of dollars invested in a lot of military bases that are all supported around us. And this is another part of our state's economy of what has the potential to tie into places such as the north of me in the spaceport. There's such a opportunity for us to jump on, but it's all in the way of roads. And so I think when I hear my good colleague Senator Padilla saying $1 billion, I too want $1 billion. And I'll tell you what, I think Rebecca Dow, Representative Dow, would say she'd take $1 billion. And it is this numbers that are big numbers. But I'll tell you what, we've escaped from those big numbers, but we're living with those numbers that we must put out. So I think it's time. I think it's an investment that's well worth it. Thank you, Ms. Chavez, for the question.
In Albuquerque, Las Cruces, and Santa Fe, if you take a look at the report, in addition to the roads, you have 5% of the bridges are substandard in poor or dangerous condition. So those are also need to be factored into these budgets as well.
All right, I see another question from Daniel Chacon. Daniel, I've elevated you to a panelist. You should be able to ask your question now as well.
Good morning. Thank you for allowing me to ask a question. I was going to ask about the likelihood of the gas tax passing the legislature this year when it went before the Senate Tax Business and Transportation Committee. It passed, but 4 Republicans on the committee voted in opposition. So what is the likelihood of that tax passing this year?
Well, gee, I'll take the tax questions, guys. So I'm sure that the others will chime in, but I would say that it's very good, actually. And I think that the different composition of the legislature at this point is going to lend itself to getting that through. So I feel very good about that. I feel that the time is right. So a lot of times your legislature winds up doing things and it's unfortunate. I have to be honest with you. It's very unfortunate when things are at a break speed or at a break condition. And that's exactly where we are right now. So I feel very good about that moving all the way through the legislature.
I think the senator was very kind when he said it has a good chance. And of course, there's not, the Republicans do not have the votes to stop that. And it's not that they're opposed to a 1-cent gas tax. It's that they are advocating for a comprehensive tax reform and what is needed to bring the entire economy forward and in a comprehensive way. And so rather than supporting one tax increase here and one increase there, but looking at an overall. So I think even in our local communities, our municipalities, folks are asking for that 1-cent tax increase if it's spent on road improvement and in infrastructure projects.
And I want to say that I don't know where we heard different numbers, but I like 7% tax or 7 cents tax because it is a need. I mean, and when we look at the history of our state, we're just behind in the way we've handled the tax in our gas. So this is an investment, particularly now, that is much more equally absorbed. And I hope in a way of comprehensive that it balances itself out and it doesn't put us in a backward way somewhere else, what we call a hole, a back hole. So this is a responsibility truly of this legislation to come to some medium of understanding that we can't do it without increasing some tax to help our streets. But I'm in concur with Rebecca Dow, and that is that the people of New Mexico, the New Mexicans, want their money working for them in the ways that we've discussed today, in the facets of improving economy, putting it to the roads and seeing roads get more improved. We're just barely hanging in there and keeping up. But I'd say again, it's because of our state's viability and its potential growth economically that has us here. So we need to invest, and I think we'll do so in this legislation here. Thank you.
I see we've got a follow-up question from Algernon. If you want to go ahead and you can ask your question now. I believe you need to just unmute your line.
Oh, thank you. For a second, I lost connection and I'm glad I'm back. Thanks for taking a second question. We've talked about the importance of the funding piece, and I'm wondering if the TRIP report and representatives want to address the challenges that come up with equitable distribution once there is funding available to invest in infrastructure. I live in southern New Mexico, and there's been some investment in some of the highways and roads in the Las Cruces area, but going out towards Representative Madrid's district and Chaparral, we see a lot more dirt roads, a lot of roads in worse condition, even though they're close to a port of entry. So, and as well, you know, in Representative Dow's district, you know, it's how do we deal with equitable distribution to make sure that communities that rely on them for emergency vehicles and other things besides job development actually gets served? Thanks.
I'd like to-
I'd like to, oh, I'm going to have to get off, but go ahead, Madrid.
I'd like to say that, you know, this is an example of where I just put out a House bill, and also we ran a bill, Representative Dow and myself, in some concepts for the rural area that turned out to be an interesting conversation piece in our committee. But it opened the door to the realization that led me to create this House Memorial 20, which is a $4.5 trillion investment that I'm asking the President of the United States to put the study together and to collaborate the coordination and funding. This is where I'm saying we cannot think small anymore. This is a need of the rural areas that need to be serviced, particularly, as you say, this bill that we ran, it was a school rural bus route modernization act, which has great potential, because when we take the mill that's taken off the roads, when we resurface them or rebuild them and put it on the side of the road, we're working a concept to get that to our local county and city municipalities to be able to service roads that are unpaved or need redoing. So I think this is a strong body of initiative, particularly in the rural parts of our state, that are stepping up and saying this can no longer go on. And we're looking for federal guidance and support. And I think this is going to move us in those directions. It just takes quite a bit of collaboration, truthfully, to tie these identities together and allow us to work and pass off jobs that have to be done this way. There's no other way. And I thank you for allowing me. I too have to go to another meeting at this moment, but I want to thank everybody. Carol Kelly, this third year now, and I'm always impressed. Rocky, thank you again. And again, I shout out to Association of Contractors of New Mexico, because they make this investment in our state every year to get this trip report to us. And I think it's the best thing that I've ever gotten in my 3 years, is this report that I look forward to every year. It's a sobering report for us, but it is what it is, and we have to take it as it is and work on it and continuously improve. But it's going to improve by our efforts of bipartisan. Thank you, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And Representative or Senator, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I want to make a comment on that. I mean, I think our state is so large that it's not always going to be equitable. I have entire zip codes with dirt roads only, and that's just one of their infrastructure problems. But I do want to commend the governor's office, the Department of Transportation, and the lawmakers that worked both chambers across the aisle to come up with priorities for this year's infrastructure projects, for the road projects. And I believe that every district is getting a major road done. That's a big deal. And I also, just from talking with my colleagues, I see a lot of people making investment with their capital dollars. And the state is also this year giving an opportunity for municipalities to prioritize roads. And it really will be all hands on deck that will allow this type of investment to continue. We have really good investments in Department of Transportation this year, and everyone's district is going to see some sort of road project, transportation district, that doesn't meet the needs. But if we can get this federal infrastructure fund funded, and we can build public-private partnerships, we can keep the momentum going. I think it'll be great for New Mexico's economy.
Thank you.
I just wrap up just real quick. Yeah, Algernon, just directly to your question on equitable distribution. I think that at the end of the day, the New Mexico Department of Transportation, Secretary Mike Sandoval, AGC, Mike Beck, Dan Silva, and the rest of the team there, and all the other folks, Carolyn, everybody that works on these projects here in New Mexico, there are standards that are in place. And I'm all about meeting those standards, irregardless if that means no money comes to a particular part that I might represent. That's perfectly fine with me if I'm above standard from a safety capacity or whatever standard. So the work that Secretary Sandoval, Mike Beck, Dan Silva, and the rest of and Carolyn and Kelly and everyone that's working on these items are doing If that's what the standards are and that's what it calls for where the money should go, I'm completely supportive of that. And then I just want to wrap up and say thank you very much for doing this. I've participated in this rollout a couple of times along the way. This is my 9th year in the Senate, and I learn a lot from this report. But again, it's not lost on me how critical our roads are to economic development and job creation. And at the end of the day, if we don't do that, we really have nothing. So I appreciate the time, and I appreciate you including me in this discussion.
Thank you, Senator. And with that, we'll conclude this news conference. Again, TRIP is available throughout the day for follow-up interviews on a one-on-one basis. Be happy to do that. And again, thank you very much to our speakers for taking the time out of their day. And with that, we'll conclude today's call. Thank you.